My phone lit up at 1 in the morning. I was still awake, I should be honest about that. I had been awake since coming home from the party, sitting at my kitchen table not reading a book I had opened, in the specific way of a person who is not ready to call the night finished. I looked at the name on the screen for 1 full second. Then I answered. She was crying. Not dramatically, the quiet kind, the kind that has been going on for a while before it makes it to the phone, the kind that is slower and therefore harder to hear. "I can't keep pretending I don't love you," she said. She said it the way you say something that has been true for so long it no longer feels like a confession. Not to shock. Not to ask for anything, just because she had finally, completely, run out of room to hold it. The kitchen was dark. I sat in it, and the silence after that sentence did the thing that only certain silences do. It moved everything 3 inches to the left without touching a single object in the room. I told her to come over. This is the part I have to explain. My name is Nathan Cole. I'm 34. I write copy for an industrial packaging firm. Product specifications, technical descriptions. The kind of writing that is functional rather than interesting. I am, in a professional sense, reasonably good at finding the right words for things. I will give you a moment to appreciate where this is going. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a city I moved to 6 years ago for a job that no longer exists, which is the most common reason people end up somewhere they hadn't planned to stay. I own a gray couch I've never regretted. I cook on Sundays and eat it until Thursday. I keep to myself in the particular way of a person who has made a reasonable peace with what that costs. I have a photograph on my fridge. I'll come back to the photograph. Her name is Isla Grant. 32. She works as a speech and language therapist at a children's clinic. She helps children find words for the things they feel. Which is, when you say it aloud like that, an exact description of what she had never quite managed for herself. We met at a flat warming party 6 years ago. She arrived with a bottle of wine she hadn't been asked to bring, and a quiet, specific opinion about the host's taste in films, delivered in the dry, unhurried way of someone who is not working for anyone's approval in that room. I liked her immediately. I put that away. I have spent 6 years doing both of those things at once. We were best friends. The kind that forms when 2 people of the same frequency end up in the same city at the same time, and gravity does the efficient work that logic won't. Sunday films at each other's places. Phone calls after bad dates, hers and mine, where we said the useful things instead of the comfortable ones. She knew how I took my coffee. I knew which of her subjects required patience and which required someone to just tell her the truth. We had the easy shorthand of people who have been paying careful, sustained attention to each other for a very long time. Everyone else seemed to have understood something that the 2 of us had agreed, without ever formally discussing it. Not to name. Dan and Liz had been together for 4 years when they announced the engagement, and they threw the party on a Friday in October with the reckless, open-handed cheerfulness of people who are completely sure about each other and want everyone around them to feel it. The venue was a function room above a pub, warm light, bad acoustics. 40 people who were genuinely glad to be there. The room smelled like warm bread from the kitchen downstairs and the particular layered warmth of a full room in autumn. Hila and I arrived separately, as we usually did for things like this. We showed up independently. Found each other 20 minutes in. I spotted her in the corner near the window with a glass of red and the expression she wore when something had amused her that she hadn't decided to share yet. And we spent the rest of the evening in each other's orbit, in the easy way that had stopped requiring explanation to anyone years ago. There was one dance. The host decreed it at some point, with the cheerful authority of someone several drinks in who has decided that participation is non-negotiable. Isla appeared at my elbow and said, "We should get this over with." We went to the floor. The first song was fine. Then, the song changed, and she didn't step back, and we stayed there through a second one, and neither of us said a word about that. Then Dan made a toast. He talked about Liz the way a man talks when he has decided, in some specific private moment, that he no longer cares how any of this looks. He said she was the first person he wanted to tell when something good or wrong, or just Tuesday, happened. He said he had known for a long time, and had been slow, and was glad she had waited. The room did the thing rooms do during toasts like that, where half the people look at the ceiling briefly, and nobody explains why. I looked at Isla. She was looking at her glass. Her jaw was set in the particular way it went when she was holding something. She caught me looking. She smiled. The moderating one. The version she put on for rooms. "He's very him, isn't he?" she said. "Yeah," I said. "I like that," she said. "When someone just stops keeping anything back." She looked away first. I looked back at the party. We went home separately at 11. I made tea. I sat at the kitchen table. I thought about a second song on a dance floor that hadn't needed to happen, and did not look at that thought directly. At 1 in the morning, my phone lit up. She knocked at 20 past 1. She was still in the dress from the party, dark green, the one I'd registered earlier and set aside the way I registered and set aside most things about her, and her shoes were in her hand. She had walked up 3 flights in bare feet. I don't know why that was the detail that made everything feel very real, but it was. "Hi," she said. "Hi," I said. I stepped back. She came in. I made tea. She sat at the kitchen table, and I set the mug in front of her, the pale blue one, ceramic, with a small chip on the handle. She had left it at my apartment 3 years ago after a Sunday film night, and had never asked for it back, and I had never brought it up, and it had quietly, without ceremony, become the one I reached for when I was making tea for her. She wrapped both hands around it. She looked at the table. I sat across from her and told myself what I always told myself in moments like this. She's had a night. She's been crying. She came here at 1 in the morning. You are her best friend. Be the friend. I have been telling myself versions of this for approximately 4 years. The kitchen was quiet the way kitchens are at 1 a.m. on a Friday, the city outside a low, distant thing, the building doing its small, private sounds. She held the mug. I waited. "I'm sorry I called you like that," she said. "Don't be." "I didn't plan," she stopped. "Started differently. I was going to sleep, and then I just couldn't." "I know," I said. She looked up. She held my gaze for 1 second longer than felt neutral, then looked back at the mug. Something in my chest moved in the direction I was used to moving it back from. I moved it back. Let me tell you about the couch. 2 years ago, Isla's relationship with a man named Marcus ended after 8 months, approximately 6 months after anyone who wasn't Isla could see where it was going. She came over the evening it finished. We sat on the gray couch and watched something neither of us was watching, and at some point, she leaned her head against my shoulder in the automatic way of someone who has used up all the energy they'd normally spend on posture. After a long time, she said, quietly, "Is it always supposed to feel like work? Being with someone?" I said I didn't know. What I wanted to say was, no. Not with the right person. No. I was going to say it. The sentence existed, formed and ready, and then I thought about who she was asking, and what it would mean for me to answer honestly, and what it would do to the 6 years of careful nothing I had been managing, and I said, "I don't know." She nodded. She sat up. We watched the film. I thought about what I hadn't said for the rest of that week, then for the weeks after it. Then I filed it under. She was hurting. You leave that alone. You are her friend. I have a very thorough filing system. It had become a structural feature of my life. Then there was Marcus himself. 8 months ago, at a leaving party for someone from Isla's office, he found me by the drinks table with the deliberate purpose of a man who has been building up to something for a while and has decided tonight is the night. He looked at me for a moment, and then he said, "She talked about you every day." Every day, every situation, everything. I told myself for months it was just how she was about people she was close to. Then I realized it was specifically you. And then I worked out what that meant. He picked up his drink. He looked at me steadily. I never had a chance, did I? I knew it pretty early. I just wanted to be wrong. He walked away. I stood at that drinks table for a long time. I thought about a man who had been in a relationship with Isla for 8 months and had drawn a conclusion that I had spent 4 years refusing to draw. I thought about what that said. I thought about it very clearly, and then I filed it under. Marcus's reading of the situation is his own, and it doesn't make it a fact, and Isla and I are best friends. And some things are easier to carry than to examine. The filing system expanded. Then there was the matter of the first call. Always. For everything. Not just the bad things, though there were those, and not just the big things. The ordinary things too, the promotions and the setbacks and the Wednesday afternoons when nothing specific had happened, but she had a thought and needed somewhere to put it. 6 years of first calls. I have sat with this number and looked at it from different angles. I have told myself, that is what the closest friendship is. The accumulated trust of proximity and time. A person who knows your shorthand well enough that you don't have to translate. I write for a living. I know when an argument is technically sound and actually wrong. I have known it in this case for approximately 4 years. I made the argument anyway, because I was practiced at it, and because the alternative required doing something about what I knew. And then there is the photograph. 5 years ago, Gemma's birthday, someone, I have never determined who, took a photo of Isla and me at the party and printed it out and stuck it on my fridge as a joke the morning after, when a handful of us had breakfast at mine before people headed home. It is a candid, she is mid-laugh at something, looking at nothing in particular. I am not looking at whatever she is laughing at. I am looking at her. I have moved twice in 6 years. The first time, the photograph went carefully into a box, face down, between a few other things I was keeping without fully examining, and when I unpacked, it was the second thing I put on the fridge. The second time I moved, I put it up the afternoon I arrived, before the bed was made, before the kitchen was unpacked. Not because I keep forgetting to take it down, because I have never, not once, wanted to. I have not told anyone this. We sat in the kitchen at 2 in the morning and talked around the thing the way you do when the thing is the only thing and you are not quite ready. She told me about the toast. About what it did to her, Dan standing there without any of his defenses up, saying the exact true thing in front of everyone. She said, "I've never heard someone talk about another person that way, without keeping anything back." It was good, I said. It was terrifying, she said. It was terrifying and I wanted. She stopped. I waited. Her thumb moved slowly around the rim of the mug. "I have this version of a conversation," she said, "in my head. I've had it for a while. Someone saying, not exactly what he said, but that kind, to a specific person." She looked at the mug. A very specific person. The kitchen was very quiet. "I know," I said. My voice was even. I was proud of that. Briefly, she looked up. She looked at me with the same expression she had on the dance floor when the second song started, and neither of us stepped back. "Nathan," she said, Yeah, I've been. She set the mug down carefully, both hands still on it. I noticed it 4 years ago, and I told myself it was because Marcus was wrong, that I was lonely, that the feeling would... She stopped. Her voice went very quiet, not hesitant, precise, and then it didn't go away. I kept waiting for it to go away, and it didn't, and I don't know what to do with that anymore. She said the last sentence quickly, too clearly, like it had been sitting behind her teeth for months, patient, waiting for a night like this one, and she had finally run out of reason to keep it there. Something in me that had been held at a particular angle for 4 years moved into a completely different position. I looked at her across the kitchen table, and I thought about the filing system. 4 years of it, thorough and careful and entirely wrong, and something cracked, quietly, in the way of a thing that has been held in one position for too long. "Ela," I said, "you've had a long night. If this is the party and the toast and the late hour, we can put this somewhere and come back to it in the morning. I mean that. You can take the spare room. We can talk about it then, or not at all, whatever you need. I'm not going anywhere." She looked at me. She looked at me for a long, even moment. "It's not the party," she said. "I knew before tonight." Tonight just, she looked at her hands on the mug. "Tonight I got tired of knowing and doing nothing with it." She looked back up. "I don't need the morning," she said. Something in me settled into a completely different configuration. I reached across the table and turned the mug so the chipped handle faced away from her, and I covered her hand with mine. She looked at our hands for a moment. Then her fingers turned, slowly, and held. "There is a photograph on my fridge," I said. "You've seen it 100 times. Neither of us has ever said anything about it." I looked at her. "I've moved twice in 6 years. It goes up first. Every time. Not because I keep forgetting to take it down." I paused. "Because I've never once wanted to." She was looking at me in the way I had spent 6 years pretending I did not need. "Nathan," she said. Quietly, "I know," I said. "I have known for a long time. I just couldn't work out how to." "I know," she said. "Neither could I." Because you never," she said at the same moment. We both stopped. We both understood. She laughed, one breath, quietly disbelieving. The sound of a person arriving somewhere they have been trying to get to for 4 years and finding the door was unlocked the whole time. I reached up and tucked her hair back with one hand. She leaned, very slightly, into it. Her eyes closed for 1 second, then opened, and she looked at me with an expression she had never once aimed directly at me before, which was that she wasn't moderating anything. Then my phone buzzed on the counter. Neither of us moved. Then I looked at it. She looked at it. The notification preview was entirely visible from where we were sitting. "Gemma, 2:47 am. Did you two finally sort it out?" Isla looked at me. "She was at the party," I said. "She's been watching us for 4 years," Isla said. "She has extremely good timing. She really does," she said. And then she was laughing, properly this time, the unmoderated version, the one she didn't produce for rooms, and I sat across from her at 2 a.m. in my kitchen and thought about the first time I had ever heard that laugh, 6 years ago at a party I hadn't particularly wanted to go to, and how I had noted it and set it aside and carried it with me, apparently. Every single day since, I thought, I am not doing that anymore. 3 months later, she had a key. She hadn't asked for one, and I hadn't given her one. She'd had a spare from 2 years ago, when she'd watered my plants while I was away, and it had stayed on her keyring the entire time. She used it now. I came home one Thursday to find her on the gray couch with the pale blue mug and a blanket she'd taken from the hall cupboard, without asking, watching something without me. With the quiet, settled comfort of someone who knows where everything is and that nobody is going to ask her to explain herself. I sat down next to her. She handed me half the blanket. We watched the rest of whatever it was. A year after that, she arrived on a Saturday morning with 2 mugs wrapped in tissue paper. Cream with a thin blue line around the rim. She put one on the shelf next to the pale blue chipped one, the original. The one she had left and never reclaimed and I had never returned. And she held the second one. In case, she said. I didn't ask in case of what. I understood what she meant. The chipped one is still there. I have never moved it. Years later, at Dan and Liz's 3rd anniversary party, same venue, better acoustics, the same fairy lights along the ceiling, someone at our table asked how long the 2 of us had been together. Ela said, 6 years. I started to say, 1, technically. And I looked at her. She looked back at me in the calm, unhurried way of a person who knows exactly what they mean and is not adjusting it. 6 years. From the flat warming. From the wine she hadn't been asked to bring, and the opinion about the films, and the laugh I'd noted and set aside, and carried with me, apparently, from the first evening until this one. 6 years, I said. She had always been counting from the beginning. That is, on reflection, the most like her thing I can tell you.